Hey everybody, it's Dave here and Darren over there. We are here, your two old bloggers, this weekend to wrap up the week. We had the draft last week, finished up on Saturday. Best show of the three live broadcasts, thanks to Darren Campbell being one of the guests. It was awesome. Thank you for coming. Also this week, we are looking at a breakout player, one near and dear to my heart, Mr. Ezra Cleveland, followed up by some of the UNFAs, the undrafted free agents that we signed after the draft. Time to get ready and look at it. And I promise you, after this show, I will work on that intro, shortening it up. Until then, let's rock! Hey everybody, it's Dave here again, Darren over there. Darren, how are things in the Great White North?
Good. A week removed from Vikings' first draft under Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, so excited about to talk about it and discuss what we liked and didn't like, along with the people who are tuning in today.
Should be fun. Should be fun. You gave me a list of a few things to talk about. And the first one we're going to go to as soon as we switch screens is scroll. Not there. We're going to start with the draft. It completed on Saturday. Like I said before, Saturday was day 3 of our live broadcast, and it was our best day. Over 3,000 people viewed. We appreciate that. All of you that watched, all of you that listened on the, well, there was no podcast because who wants to listen to 6 hours of podcast? But all of you that joined us on the show, we really appreciate it. It was a good show. Darren helped close it out. We wrapped it up, but let's talk about it because you and I haven't got the chance to talk about it yet.
We have not, but we'll do that today. As I mentioned, it was when we went into the draft, we'd been used to 16 years of Vikings draft with Rick Spielman involved in some way or another. Whether he was, I think, director of player personnel for the first 6 years of his time at the Vikings, and then as GM from 2012 till 2021. And so, part of the interest from me and from you and from other Vikings fans was like, how was the new GM, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, going to handle the draft, and how different would it look? And I think what we saw was that in some ways it was quite similar. Uh,
Very.
like like Kwesi was very aggressive, 6 draft day trades, the most that any NFL team did, and he almost said he almost pulled off a 7th, but he got talked out of it by the war room, and then
Well, 6 ties the record.
yes, and then he was looking for, and then the other thing was he got his 10 draft picks. That was Rick Spielman's his one of his talking points was in the last few drafts was he always liked to have 10. Kwesi went from 8 with draft day trades, got up to 10. So a lot of similarities there, I think. But
Taking
I
a
think
cornerback high and then double
yeah,
dipping later, taking a linebacker in the 4th round, just there was all sorts of parallels between the two.
I think for me the overall, if you're looking from what I've been reading from people who have assessed the Vikings drafts who aren't drinking the purple Kool-Aid, they felt that it was a solid draft. I've been seeing basically grades of B and B minuses, mostly Bs. The feeling was that overall consensus seems to be that it was a solid draft, but not a really exciting draft. And I would tend to agree with that. I didn't think there was a lot of, there wasn't like a pick that really just did grab me. I thought, here's a guy that's going to make a huge difference with the Vikings in 2022. But there was, there's certainly things that I liked about it. I think particularly, like a lot of people, I wasn't really jazzed about the trade with Detroit to go from 12 to 32, just because I felt, they gave up that second rounder. I didn't really feel that they had to do that. And really, when you're looking at dropping 20 spots in the first round, I think other people feel that as well, that you want to extract more value than the Vikings got
Mm-hmm.
from that trade. Now, the argument has been that the Detroit would have got a trade down to maybe not 12, but they would have got to 13 or 14 anyway. Some other teams they would have made the trade, and then we would have been stuck at 12 and not got any sort of uh, value at
Value.
all from it.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt they
The
needed to
extra
extract
pick.
more value from that. I also feel that they really, I did really like the Andrew Booth trade. I thought that getting Booth, getting the trades to get Booth in the second round, a first rounder, talent who dropped because of injury concerns. That was I thought that was a really good move. Probably one of my favorite moves of the draft for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. He's a guy that's going to start likely
Mm-hmm.
first, possibly the first right off the get-go. The Vikings had serious concerns as far as depth goes at cornerback. Booth really addresses that. And, the
And if he's
Vikings,
healthy, like he supposedly had this core surgery and he hasn't been healthy since junior high or whatever it was, and he's healthy now. And if he played as well as he did in college, unhealthy, I look forward to seeing what he does healthy, um, with that repaired. And that may turn out to be the best draft pick. But of course, that's yet to be determined.
true. I don't really have a problem with the Lewis Cine pick at 32. A few shows ago, we talked about Cine being a potential target for the Vikings, just maybe in the second round, but that would have been too late, as it turns out, too late to get Cine. Apparently, even the Cowboys had him ranked pretty high according to the draft board that Jerry Jones was showing everybody after the
Well,
first
supposedly
round.
he was 13 on that draft board for
Yes, for
Dallas.
sure.
The sleuth
And
zoomed in. They, cleaned up the pixels and did all that, and he was supposedly 13 on their draft board, which is interesting. Which means, the consensus board had him, about where we picked him. and they had him as the second or third best safety, maybe going bottom of the first, top of the second. But that's a consensus board that this is the teams. Obviously, the only team we saw was Dallas, and it was sleuthed after the fact that Jerry Jones said, my draft board. Mm-hmm.
So, Scene, my concern there with picking Scene in the first round is maybe it's a bit of a safety bias by me, but I don't really think that, I don't think Scene is going to have the impact for the Vikings of a first round pick that I want to see. He's not going to have a Micah Parsons impact on the Vikings defense. At least that's how I feel at the moment, particularly playing at safety. Will he start from day one? It's looking like he will. He'll certainly play a lot regardless, because there's talk that Ed Donatel, Mike Pettin are going to be using a lot of three safety looks. Cameron Bynum, being a former cornerback, switched to safety and his coverage abilities. The fact that Scene played some slot in college as well. And, certainly Scene's got, I've been very impressed when I have, from what I've seen from Scene so far in the interviews. Super smart kid, seems like a very hard worker, and a guy, and the measurables are very, very good, very fast, very extremely strong. Fast. Yeah, extremely strong. And
not afraid to hit.
Good tackler. So those are all things that we need. But your first round pick, you want that player to have the impact like a Justin Jefferson had in 2020, or like Micah Parsons did last year with the Dallas defense, had a large part in turning them around from a pretty mediocre unit to a very good unit. So there's some questions there, but Scene, again, like Drew was saying, he could end up being a better safety than any of the ones that have been picked. Really, some of my favorite picks outside of the booth was getting Brian Asamoah in the third round. Really unique player, 6 feet, only about 225, not even 230 pounds, but really a guy who's kind of a unique hybrid linebacker safety type. And I think at the third round, hugely productive at Oklahoma in his college career. Another guy who's very smart. That was something that seems to be a trend with what the Vikings picked in a lot of their draftees, that they're smart dudes. And he's a guy that, he's either going to be like a bust because he's too small and just doesn't really, that his stature doesn't work at the NFL level for whatever reason, or he's going to be like a huge demon matchup problem for offenses, and a guy who really carves out a very good role on the Vikings defense in that 3-4 as a missile kind of situational kind of player, which I think is what he's going to be his first year at least. And he'll certainly contribute on special teams, I think, in coverage and on punt and kickoff returns, even if he doesn't play a whole lot.
In the private draft debriefing from the team to the press, Arif Hassan was telling us how they envision him to be, straight off the get-go, a special team super stud because of his speed. Oklahoma's defense was known for speed. Their instant see, react, shoot, bang, right? And that's how he reacts. As for size, yes, he's small for a linebacker. But what's trending in the new NFL, as the NFL goes through its cycles, is a smaller, faster linebacker rather than the traditional 6'3", 6'4", 260 pound, 50, 70 pound guy that's just, meat stuffer plugged a hole. And he's smaller. Well, we're starting to see that some of these linebackers and safeties are becoming almost interchangeable when you look at their profiles. And it's going to be interesting because Ed Donatel will, and the 3-4 is the base, but I suspect we will spend less than 20% of the time in the base. We're going to see a lot of nickel and a lot of dime. The dime brings you your third safety. We may have 3 safeties and 2 in a nickel instead of 3 corners. It's all how they want to work it. But we may see 6 DBs with some of them this, hybrid, almost linebacker types. Harrison Smith can play that. Scene can play it. Types in there closer to the box or whatever. Then we see a normal 3-4 with a normal setup in the back. I'm betting that's going to be the case for this season. If that's the case, this kid, with his speed, with his hitting capability, with his, see, go type mentality, can really be a benefit. And I like this pick. And I'm not the only one. Ryan Ortega from Climbing the Pocket loves it because, of course, he's a Boomer Sooner. Flip Mozzie, our great Flip Mozzie, loves it because he's another Ghanaian American. So I think this, even though he's small, even though he's light, he hits like a Mack truck. I'm looking forward to this pick.
I said it last week on our Saturday draft show that this pick, and as you talk about the hybrid safety linebacker kind of thing that's happening, is something that the CFL has done for a number of years, the Canadian Football League, and I'm Canadian, so
Hey.
not that I'm plugging it, but because the Canadian field is it's wider, it's longer than the NFL field. Traditionally, those big round bellies, like you say, don't fit as well in that style of play. There's only 3 downs, so teams don't run as much. They throw a lot more because that's the most efficient way to move the ball. And so a guy like Asamoah, who's a linebacker but really is not much bigger than Lewis Cine,
right,
is like he's a guy who in the old NFL would have been a safety, but in the CFL, where he'd be a linebacker size guy because the NFL size linebackers are too big to play linebacker in the CFL, and they'd be more edge rushers playing on the defensive line. And so it's again, the NFL is kind of moving in that way, why they're looking for hybrid guys that can run, guys that can cover, and that you're not going to find that in like 260-pound linebackers normally. Another pick, that late pick, third day pick that I'm intrigued about, and we had his picture up earlier, was that Ty Chandler, the running back from North Carolina. Breakaway speed, a guy who catches the ball well out of the backfield. I thought that was an interesting pick for the Vikings in the 5th round because you got Dalvin Cook, who's going to going to take the bulk of the carries. You got Alexander Mattison, who's always been his backup for the past 3 years, steady guy. And then you got Kene Nwangwu, we are intrigued to see what he could develop into with his breakaway speed and a big game, big play making ability. But Chandler is a guy who is, at least from what I've read and what I've seen, is that he was much better feel for running, the running game and setting up blocks. And he had a lot more usage in college than Kene Nwangwu ever had. Right. And I'm interested to see what, and also Chandler has returned kickoffs in the past. Kene Nwangwu's got that job nailed down as long as he's healthy, but there's a little bit of insurance there if he isn't healthy that Chandler can move into that role. But I think Chandler, at least with his college resume, seems like a guy who could actually be the guy we wanted Nwangwu to be last year. Somebody you stick in there as a change of pace back, excellent catching the ball out of the backfield, got breakaway speed, so he can take a short pass and take it to the house, or take a nothing carry, take it to the house. So I'm really interested to see what he can do. And does the Chandler selection mean that Alexander Mattison, who's going to be in his last year of his contract with the Vikings, and that his meat and potatoes running style, if this is going to be his last year with the Vikings? I think it is, because we've got Nwangwu and then Chandler, who, if he plays like with up to the potential that he appears to have, he could be the guy that becomes the backup to Cook in 2023. And
if Cook is still here in 2023.
That's the other thing. That is the other thing, yes. So I found the Chandler pick, that was a pick that really intrigued me. And I think overall, again, the draft, the Vikings went defense heavy in the first 5 picks, which indicated that to me that they were fine with the way the offense is and thinks they need a little bit of just a little bit of tweaking here and there. That the defense was the big problem. They needed to address that, particularly the secondary. They did so by taking 2 corners and a safety with 3 of their first 5 picks, and then they kind of did some projections and got some depth for the offense in the last 5 picks by going offense 4 out of 5.
But there was one early pick where they went
That's
offense.
right. And this was the one that I questioned, just because Ed Ingram there, guard, LSU, again played in the SEC, great competition he's playing against, but it seemed, again, based on everything I read, that he went a little bit too early in the second round. He's a guy that's got his run blocking grades weren't that great, but his pass blocking grades in college were very good. And so we know that the Vikings interior pass blocking and run blocking too, I guess, but pass blocking in particular has been an issue for several seasons. And maybe Ingram's pass blocking ability really caught the Vikings' eye. They obviously had him rated a lot higher than some of the other guards that went later. And the consensus boards were saying were better players than Ingram. And but that's a questionable pick in the second round. At least it was for me, but the Vikings obviously felt different, and he does bring a lot of competition, more competition to a right guard. You got now him, you got Jesse Davis. Apparently Chris Reed, according to Doogie Wilson, is going to compete for the center job, not the right guard job.
Right.
And then you got Wyatt Davis. I'm not sure where Wyatt Davis fits in here, but he's going to be given an opportunity, but Ingram is another guy in that mix. I don't know how you felt about the Ingram trade, Dave. Your, again, offensive line is kind of one of your things.
Well, with Ingram, of course, there's his backstory, which nobody wants to talk about, and we'll leave alone. Looking at a football perspective, Tyler Fornes of the Real Fornes Show sent me 3 game tapes, UCLA, Kentucky, and Alabama, of the lineman tape. So I watched him, and I watched him play. He has some skills that most linemen coming out of college do not have. In this picture alone, if you look at him in his stance, is it a pass play or is it a run play?
Hard for me to tell. Looks like a run.
Well, we don't know. First off, his back is almost parallel to the ground. That's good form. That's very, very good form. He looks relaxed, and he is relaxed. He goes to the line, watching the tape. He goes to the line, and he sets, and he sits there, right? Unless the quarterback says something that he has to turn his head to, listen to, maybe a play change or something. He sits there, right? He looks with his eyes as to who he's blocking, who's moving on the defensive side. As a defensive end, I can tell you one of the keys I looked at was his fingers, right? Is there pressure on his fingers? Has he got his weight forward on his fingers? Or is he sitting back light? If somebody is sitting back light on their fingers, that's an indication it's a pass play, because he wants to instantly come back it up, right? If it's way forward and his knuckles are white, or if he's in a gorilla stance with his knuckles bent over on the ground, then it's a run play. It's a pure run play, right? And it's easier for the defense to read. And not only is the defensive end, if they're lined up on, if this was a tackle, I'd be a defensive end lined up on this, would they know? But your linebackers and your defensive backs are also looking for little subtle keys like this. He is well disciplined. It's hard to tell by reading his body what the play is going to be. You can do that now, even in the modern NFL, especially with young rookies. You can see that. In college, you can see that. If you know what you're looking for, you can see that and you can read the plays. He is good and well disciplined at that. Now, what I saw of the plays, looking at those 3 tapes, is that one, he's strong. If he locks onto you, he's probably going to bury you. But when it comes to pass blocking, what I found interesting, here he's got his left arm down. I believe he's right-handed, but he was on the left side of the line, and he was on the left side of the line mostly all of college. He supposedly played some right guard snaps. I don't know. I don't think he did for most of his college career as left guard, but he'll be moved over to right. His right arm, when he'd go back into pass sets, if a defender came up on him, he would take that right arm or off arm, it didn't matter, left or right, and he would almost punch the defender, and it would stun him. And the guy would just do this number, and then at that time, like good offensive linemen do, they grab around the shoulder pads, around the chest, and he controlled them. Flat out, he controlled them. They didn't get near the quarterback. The quarterback got to do what the quarterback wanted to do. That's what we want to see in the pros as well. Because you've got to be able to sit there and hold. Green Bay does the bear hug thing where they wrap around. As long as they don't turn, they don't get called. I think it's cheating, but it works.
Yes.
So you got to hold that defender in space. And he was constantly looking in the tapes, left, right, stuff like that. If he needed to shed, because he usually won his block, if he needed to shed and go help his tackle or shed and go help the center, he would. Right? Already after his guy's out of the play. That means a lot. That means if he's starting, Kirk Cousins is going to have a cleaner pocket to step up into and throw a deeper ball. That's what we want. I was really impressed. I mean, he's got things he can learn, right? There's no rookie coming out of college that's going to set the NFL on fire, especially this point in the draft. But this kid could be a very, very good starter for the NFL. And for our Minnesota Vikings, and of course he's wearing the right colors, I want to give him a chance. I'm looking forward to that competition at right guard to see who actually wins it. And I think all these guys in combination, it can't hurt. It's going to be steel on steel. They're going to make each other better because they're going to want that job. And I think our depth this year, especially on the offensive line, will be where we want it to be. Now, we'll get more into the offensive line in the next segment when we talk breakout player. But the more I look at this guy and me looking at the tape, the more I really, really like this pick.
Well, that's good to hear, Dave, because we did pick him in the second round, which is a high bit of draft capital, and I would hate for us to have reached on a player hugely that's not going to contribute. So
right.
again,
that generally indicates he's going to start.
Yeah.
So,
and overall in the draft, with all the trades that Kwesi made, the wheeling and dealing, and I think aside from the first round pick with Detroit, which again I think most people agree we didn't get the value we would have liked out of it, but it is what it is. But the Vikings
I do want to give credit to that chart to Ted Glover.
Yeah,
he made the chart. I didn't.
That's true.
And it was I've talked about this on a previous show. Yes, nobody liked that first draft or that first trade with Detroit. We seem to have lost it now. It depends on what trade chart you're looking at, whether you're looking at production or whether you're looking at the Jimmy Johnson, which Thor Nystrom calls the Blue Book, Kelly Blue Book. It's the starting point. But that was built back decades when it was based on rookie salaries, when salaries were so high. So we lost it, except for when you look at the production, because we got more players out of it. So
yeah,
it is what it is.
And the Vikings, I get partly of how you view this draft and whether you agree with the philosophy or not is whether you think the Vikings could have got better players by just sticking where they were with the first round pick at 12, a second round pick at 46, and a third rounder at 77, or whether you think they could get better talent with the 5 picks they got from 32 on down to 119 in the second, third, and fourth round. Picking up two second-round picks, one in a third and one in a fourth. We didn't have a fourth going into the draft, so the Vikings got 5 picks from 1 to 119, whereas before the draft they had 3 picks from from 1 to 77. And I like that philosophy. I like having a few more bullets to pick, a few more bullets to shoot from rounds 1 to 4, and Kwesi Adolphe did that. So
and that's where it's different from Spielman, right?
Yeah.
Spielman loved to have all his draft picks, but most of them were in the 7th round, day 3. Kwesi got him moved up to the first 2 days, and I think that's where the quality comes into play. And I think when we look back at this draft in 3 years, I think we're going to see the big difference there.
Yes, and so it'll be as all these things, time will tell in 2 or 3 years what we think, how well the draft really was. But again, solid draft, I think, and maybe missing a bit of the wow factor, at least for me. But that doesn't mean that the decisions that were made and the draft picks that were made aren't going to wow us next year or in year 2, 3, and 4. So,
no, and I agree. And Too Evil to Hope wanted to get a 2023, pick so we could help next year to find Kirk's replacement. I agree with him, but that didn't happen. I'm sure
we actually gave up a 4th rounder in 2023 through all the wheeling.
And I think we only have 6 picks next year. But I'm sure, as of right now, we're supposed to get a 1 or 2 compensatory 6 from what I see from our free agents, but that's it. But I'm sure when the trade with Detroit, Kwesi asked for their 2023, but they said no. And the reason they said no is they weren't going for a quarterback, because quarterbacks in this draft dropped. And it's usually the quarterbacks that bring those high yield trade returns. And they said no. So, Tyler, too bad you're late. You missed a lot of the good talk and me getting excited over Ed Ingram. And we will talk more about that on Monday on Tyler's show, The Real Forno Show.
Don't miss it.
It's going to be good. Now, sticking to the script, we're going to a breakout player. This is part 2 of a 4-part series of yours of identifying players that can have breakout seasons. And in this episode, you wish to discuss?
I wish to discuss left guard Ezra Cleveland, David, a guy that you really were really excited about when the Vikings drafted him in 2020, and a guy who has been, I think, is an important piece to the Vikings offensive line puzzle, and an important piece to the Vikings offensive line getting to a level of play that we all want to see them get from being a pretty mediocre unit, particularly on the up in the from the guard spots and the center spot, to getting to be a unit that we think is at least solid and maybe even very good. And so Ezra Cleveland is a guy that again, 2nd round pick, and high hopes for him. Left tackle at Boise State. I think we all know that story. Got switched to guard by the Vikings, something that we've discussed on the show many times, and been somewhat puzzled by the whole thing. But anyway, he's been at left guard. He's a starter there now, and that the thing about Cleveland is, if you look at his Pro Football Focus grades, and again, we go to those because they're one of the few outlets that actually puts out grades publicly, that compares, particularly on the offensive line. It can give us an idea of if what we think we're seeing when we watch the games is what is actually their level of play. And if you look at Cleveland's grades last year, you've got a picture of a guard who is okay, but not really, not setting the league on fire, not a top 10 guard, nothing like that. Last year, his PFF grade,
Overall,
yeah,
he's average.
yeah, he was 23rd
Basically,
overall amongst 70 some guards, and this included both left and right guards, so it's not just left guards. So that's okay, but again, not in the top 10.
no,
Uh,
but it's a top third, and he's only in his second year and first time at this position.
Exactly. Yeah, those are all things that are true, David. But again, an okay guard. But the Vikings have got, I think, on the interior, they've been getting by with players who are okay or worse for quite a
I would
while.
say worse.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Cleveland is a guy that I think is really key because uh, we're going with on the assumption right now that Bradbury is the favorite, or he's the starter right now. Maybe Chris Reed will overtake him. We'll see. But Bradbury is a huge question mark if he's the center. Has not performed very well in his 3 years in the league. Been disappointing. A guy who is has big issue with giving up pressure up the middle, and he's a weak link. It has been for the first 3 years. On right guard, it's way up in the air right now. We know Oli Udoh was a starter last year, was an even bigger weak link than Garrett Bradbury. A lot of competition going on there. We talked about that. Jesse Davis signed. Right now, he's the favorite to start at right guard, but and he's done better as a guard than as a tackle in his NFL career. But still, I don't think we're expecting him to be an All-Pro. You got Wyatt Davis, huge unknown because last year he did not play at all and was in Zimmer's doghouse. And
Yeah,
we're not
just
sure
about a
what
dozen special team snaps, and that was it.
we just do not know what a former All-American, what his capabilities are. And then Ed Ingram, we just talked about, drafted in the second round this year. But so right guard's a huge question mark right now. Center's a question mark, but left guard, we know Cleveland's going to be there. We know he's going to start. We also know that his grades were just okay, but if you
Okay's
look at his
better than
past, and
the other
it's
side and what we had.
it's okay, yeah. But he's
Tristan
got,
Salt
again,
said, we've really sucked drafting lately and put Cleveland in that list. We did hit on O'Neal and apparently Darsal. Tristan, if you look at O'Neal's grades, his grades are Cleveland's grades are tracking just like O'Neal's did. O'Neal did, we saw some good things in his first year, and then he did better and was about average in his second year. In his third year, he took off. If that same trend happens with Cleveland, where first year he was meh, right? Second year he was average. Third year he takes off. That's a hit. That's an absolute hit, and that includes switching sides. You know, well, switching from left tackle to right guard to left guard. That's quite a bit. I'm going to sit with Cleveland over there. Yeah, I have bias. I like him a lot, but I think he can turn into one of the better left guards in this league, and I would leave him there. You know, even though we drafted Ingram, and Ingram obviously can play left guard, I'd move Ingram to right and compete over there. Our weakest spots are center and right guard. That's where we need to focus first, in my opinion.
and with Ezra Cleveland, again, his PFF grades, his run blocking, actually better than okay. I mean, 14th overall amongst those 70-some guards. The pass blocking is where things are more concerning for me, where he was ranked 42nd. That is not good and is an issue because, Kirk needs a clean pocket to be at his best. Especially if he's getting pressured up the middle because Bradbury's leaking and getting backed up, and Cleveland's getting backed up, and the right guard, whoever it is getting backed up. That's not good news for Cousins. It's not good for our passing offense. So, Cleveland's really got to step it up this year. And like you said, you've said it before, it takes a while for a college offensive lineman often to hit their stride.
3 to 4 years on average for linemen.
He's in year three. He's in year 3 now. Coming out of college, the good stuff on him was extremely athletic. And we've seen that. He can get out in space. He can pull. He can get out there and take guys on that way. The knock on him was that he didn't have good base strength, that he got he got walked back into the quarterback too much at left tackle. I think that has happened to some degree as a left guard. But again, third year, he's got a new offensive line coach. Maybe Chris Cooper can unlock all that potential, that athletic ability, and turn it around for Cleveland. And I say turn it around, not that he's been a disaster his first 2 years, but like Drew was saying in the comments, okay is not good enough. We've been settling for okay as a team, as a franchise, for too long. We need to do better. And Cleveland, I think, is one of those guys. You know what you got in Brian O'Neill, good player. Christian Darrisaw, I think, is going to be a good one. So your tackles are good. If you got a third guy, especially in the interior, if Cleveland really comes on this year and plays like he's capable of, I believe, that's going to help whoever the center is, because they've got support there to their left side. They're not having to worry as much about whoever is getting them, is giving the left guard is a sieve.
And hopefully Kirk can see his right side because he's right-handed and move from there.
Or, the left guard, because he's good, he can kind of slide over and help the center at times. And if Jesse Davis or Ed Ingram or Wyatt Davis is 20% better than Oli Udoh last year, that's a huge win for the Vikings at right guard. Overall, the interior is going to be much improved, and I think Cleveland, he's got the best opportunity of those right guard, center, left guard that we have that are potentially going to be starting all the options. I think he's got the best. I believe he's the best bet to be the guy who really ascends and gives us a third quality player on the offensive line. And I think that three quality offensive linemen is a lot more than most NFL teams have.
Well, yeah, we'll see. But as you can see, our remarks are lining up with Bradbury, center. And then one person we didn't discuss that we got in free agency, who's probably the better guard of all the new guys we got, is this gentleman, Chris Reed, right? Chris Reed came in. He is a good, I shouldn't say very good. He's a good and capable guard, but he also plays center. He's had no regular season snaps at center, but he's had some preseason snaps at center, and he played some center in college, I believe. He is, according to Doogie Wolfson, been reported that he will have the chance to compete at center. So, if he doesn't compete at center, he'll compete at guard.
Reed seems to be kind of our Mason Cole this year, who, like, Cole was a guy who could play guard or center. He ended up doing both last year and ended up doing both probably a little bit better than the guys that he replaced.
Possible. He's got better grades than Jesse Davis does at guard. So it's quite possible. Too Evil to Hope talked about Treader needs to be brought in. If J.C. Treader is signed, and I can see that. That's a beautiful thought. And stays healthy because he's got the knee issues. He will be the starting center. And then at that point, Chris Reed, et al., Ingram, Jesse Davis, Wyatt Davis can all fight for that right guard spot. And I'll be perfectly happy because consider all those guys and look at the depth.
Yeah.
We haven't had that kind of depth in probably over a decade when it comes to the offensive line. So I can't see us getting worse this year. I can only see us getting better on the offensive line. Ezra Cleveland, the breakout player, cements that. And I think he will get better this year. I think he will take the same trajectory as Brian O'Neill did and establish himself as a very good left guard.
That is the dream, David, for sure. He's got some motivation because he'll be he's got to be looking at what his next contract is going to be, and a big third year will either cement for him getting a good contract, whether it's the Vikings or some other team.
Now, you in our notes talked about Ezra being a little weak at Boise State. Even though he played tackle, he was fast. He could
Yeah.
block well and he moved well, but he was a little weak and could get run over. That's generated this image of him scowling at you, but it's probably a true statement. I do think, though, Ezra has bulked up. That's part of coming into the NFL, learning what weight you need, what strength
Yeah.
you need, everything else, how to deal with, if you're playing guard, the defensive tackles from the nose tackle on out to the five techs on how to do that, or a rushing linebacker, how to, shed a block to pick that up or to do whatever, and how to work in that phone booth. Ezra is doing that. He's learning. He has not dropped. He's going up on his talent curve. And I think I agree with you. He is a breakout player we need to watch this season. So, and who does he protect? We keep this man clean. There's no excuse. He's one of the best clean pocket passers. I think he was ranked number 1 last year, clean pocket passing in the league. Do that, combine that with the brain of Kevin O'Connell, and our offense should rock. And by rock, I mean top 5. And Drew, absolutely right. Ezra, I've enjoyed him, and he's been my boy since prior to draft night on 2019. I was banging the table for him. You got that 100% right. With that, we're moving to the third theme, which some folks have been waiting for. But first, Lake Monster Brewing. Lake Monster. I wear a hat. Why? Because they make some absolutely fantastic beer. Darren, I guarantee you would love some. It is outstanding. From their IPAs, their stouts, their lagers, their wit beers, their sours. I haven't tried one of their sours, but like Ryan Ortega and some of the guys say they love the sours. Refreshing, especially in summer. And you go to the golf course, come off the lake. You're on the lake. Hey, screw coming off the lake. You're on the lake catching all sorts of walleye. In Ted's case, his brother's catching the walleye for him. But you're having a good time drinking, and it is a great time and a great beer. And if you're in St. Paul or in Minneapolis, the cities, the area, go down to St. Paul. They're right across the river from Minneapolis, and enjoy. It's good times, good people, and it's great beer. And Matt Lang, the brewmeister there, told me it doesn't matter. You're only going to get Lake Monster within Minnesota area. I'm sure you can pick it up in Fargo, Grand Forks, maybe down in South Dakota, stuff like that. But the area, you're going to find it. It's not nationwide. I wish it was. It's that good. But he's focused on the local area. But he says, whatever you do, support your local breweries around here because they make great beer. He told me to do it in Austin because he's been down here. They make great beer. I'm sure in Yellowknife, during those long winter months, there's not much better to do than brew beer. So, and I know when you're on the east coast of Canada, you've talked about doing it yourself. So, going into the business. And it's a good business to be in. But our sponsor and our partner, Lake Monster Beer, great beer. I highly recommend it. Now, to our last segment, the UDFAs, undrafted free agents. You wanted to talk about them, and this is where I'm lighting the graphics because I didn't find that many, but we have a few new ones to talk about.
Yes, we do. This time of the year, David, I'm always interested about the the undrafted rookie free agents that the Vikings picked. The Vikings drafted 10 players in the draft, but then they also selected 10 undrafted rookie free agents.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, not all the time, not most of the time, but sometimes those dudes, those kids turn into John Randall
Mm-hmm.
or they're Adam Thielen,
Right.
or a little bit lesser, they're Anthony Harris or Eric Wilson, guys that
Mm-hmm.
don't get drafted but end up playing a fairly significant role for the Vikings. In the case of Randall, Hall of Famer, and one of the all-time greats. So I'm always interested in the undrafted rookie free agents that the Vikings, sign. And there's 3 in that of the 10 that I wanted to highlight today, and we've got them up there. And there are Gabe Brkic, Luigi Villain, and Bryant Kobeck.
Billy.
And I've got good. And Kobeck's the first guy I'm going to talk about. I want to highlight. He's in the middle there, number 22, and
Running
from
back
Toledo,
Toledo.
running back from Toledo, and interesting cat because he's super productive at Toledo last year. 1,400 yards, 15 touchdowns, and he had 34 catches. Was it 34 catches? 30 catches last year. Now he did that with I think the Mid-American Conference at Toledo. That's not the SEC. It's not the
Right.
Big
It's
12
not
or
the
anything
Big
like that.
Ten. It's not. Yeah.
And he did it as a fifth-year senior, so he's a little bit older than some of the other people he's going up against. But still, he's a guy that the production's there, and a good size, 6 feet, 210. A guy who's also got the reputation for being he's again another smart kid. A guy who has very good vision as a running back, has good speed, surprisingly elusive, and again, a very good pass catcher out of the backfield, and a very good blocker.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that he's a guy that I don't know if there's room for him on the Vikings, but because you've got Cook, you've got Madison, Kenny Nwangwu now, and we drafted Ty Chandler, but we know Cook. I'd be surprised if Cook plays a snap in preseason this year. Madison might not play very much either because he's right now the backup to Cook.
Right.
But
Well,
so
Madison was the relief back, so
yeah.
I'm sure
But
that
I think
relief type stuff is going to go in there again. So
I don't see him getting much play in the preseason. So there's going to be an opportunity for Kobeck, along with Chandler and Kenny Nwangwu. They're going to get the running attempts. They're going to get divvied up between those 3 dudes, and Kobeck has got a shot. If he can adjust to the level of play, he's got a shot to make an impression with the Vikings, and maybe he steals that 4th running back position from Chandler. I think Nwangwu is going to stay on the squad because of his kickoff returning ability. There's no way you get rid of that. But Kobeck is a guy that interests me, and again, with that kind of production, can't be ignored. Intriguing player, intriguing undrafted rookie free agent that the Vikings have picked up, even if he's at an end. Running backs get hurt a lot, so even if you got him on the practice squad, we may need him. Could be AJ Rose. Yeah, I'm not so sure about AJ, but
but he's still on there
he's
too.
in
Talk
there.
about preseason.
He's in there.
AJ
He's
Axel
in there.
Rose is still going to fight for trying to get his spot, and he had a good preseason last year.
He did, yes, he did. But Kobeck's a guy to watch out for. Another guy that I wanted to highlight is Luigi Villain. I'm only partly highlighting because he's Canadian from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, the nation capital of Canada.
When I see his name, I think of Luigi with the mustache, the Mario Brothers.
Yeah,
the evil dude. It's just one of those things.
Just
I'm sure
aside.
that sticks with him. I'm sure I'm not the first to think of that.
Could be. He's a guy that Drew would be familiar with because he started his career at Michigan. Didn't really do much because he got injured a fair bit, and because there were guys like Kwity Paye, Aiden Hutchinson, and David Ojabo who were on that team and were ahead of him. So not much playing opportunity for him between the injuries and the talent that Michigan had at that position. But then last year he transferred to Wake Forest, playing in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and he got, he had a very, very good year. 9 sacks, 10 tackles for a loss. And so everybody's always looking for pass rushers, Dave. He's an intriguing cat to me. His measurables aren't really off the charts by any stretch. I think he ran a 4.8 or so, or just under at the combine. And we saw many edge rushers at the combine run much faster than that. He's a guy who, again, from the scouting reports, doesn't have an explosive first step, which is something you want your edge rushers to have, but does have a very good motor, never quits on plays, always running them down. And again, the production at Wake Forest in the ACC last year, 9 sacks, can't ignore it. Kind of like Kenny Willekes, right? Didn't have great measurables, but the production you could not ignore. So
yeah, the motor and the getting it done. Yep.
So worth bringing on as an opportunity. I can see him in the 3-4 we're running. He's a guy that, again, I don't give him a shot, see what he happens in training camp, and he could be a guy you could develop.
Or do you see him as the outside linebacker?
No, I see him as an outside linebacker rushing there. Although
the edge rusher.
The edge rusher, I think that, but although he has a lot more experience, again, from what I read, with his hand in the ground, hand in the dirt, as Mike Mayock would say, than standing upright. And again, what I read was that his snaps standing upright were not all that impressive. So, but he's still, I think he's a guy, you bring him in with that kind of production, he gets stashed on the practice squad, you work on him. He could be a guy that could develop into a useful piece as a 3-4 in the 3-4 as an edge rusher from the linebacker position. That he's the guy. And I think that the other guy I wanted to bring up is Gabe Brkic. The place kicker, he was kind of the last selection that the Vikings got I shouldn't say selection, the last guy the Vikings signed as an undrafted rookie free agent. Another guy that's
they supposedly signed him to a 3-year contract, which means nothing in the long run.
No, because
but he had an indicator.
Last year he was a finalist for the Lou Groza Award, which is for the top kicker in college football. 20 for 26 in field goals last year, so that's not that's about 79%, which is not outstanding, but he was 5 for 7 on field goals 50 and over, which is good. And he only missed 1 extra point, and we know Oklahoma kicks a lot of extra points because they score a lot. He improved his leg strength last year, but he's got the distance to hit from distance. The knocks on him have been that he's intermediate field goal distance, his accuracy kind of comes and goes, and that on kickoffs he surprisingly, for a guy who can kick 50-yard field goals and more and make them, he didn't get a lot of touchbacks on kickoffs. So those are the knocks on him. But I think that when if you look at Greg Joseph's, sure, he had a pretty good year last year, just signed a $2.4 million 1-year contract, although none of it is guaranteed, but he missed a couple of key kicks against Arizona, which lost the game for us. The Detroit game, he missed that 49-yarder, didn't even reach the upright, and that ended up gave Detroit the chance to come back and tie the game, and then Joseph won it at the end. But if he'd made the kick earlier, we wouldn't have went into overtime, along with Madison fumbling the ball. But we won't get into that. But I think Joseph, although he had a very good year, kickers are always, he's not Justin Tucker. Kickers tend to be up and down. I think it's good to have competition. Brkic is a talented place kicker. I think Joseph certainly is the front runner, and I expect him to win the job. But if Joseph has not a very good training camp, maybe struggles in preseason, and Brkic is lights out, then the Vikings will have a difficult decision to make at place kicker. So I think, Brkic is just another guy that intrigued me out of that undrafted rookie free agent group, and just something to watch there.
Oh, it is. We also signed an undrafted free agent punter.
We did from Tulane.
Mm-hmm. And the kid plays punter and tight end or something like that. He's like 240 pounds. He's a
He's a big
big
boy.
dude. Yeah,
He's
and
a
it's
big
like,
boy.
whoa. So that gives us two guys that, play multiple spots that can punt. Um, but there is going to be, but the whole idea is there's going to be a kicking competition, which is good. One, it keeps whoever wins its leg relatively fresh. They don't, blow out their leg in the preseason um, doing kicks, but it actually causes competition. Just like at the guard position, we're going to have a competition. Competition breeds excellence because you are there. I know I always love to compete and be better than the next guy, right? We all love to do that and then cheer each other on as well. So if they both come out just absolutely kick ass, one's going to get signed with some other team, right? Whoever doesn't get signed with or kept with the Vikings. It's a good deal and it only makes us better. And that's the goal of the offseason, make this team better.
Not settling for okay, settling for excellence.
Exactly. Exactly. Drew, thank you very much. Um, show covers Tulane. It's totally prepared. I love Tulane, Drew. Anyways, are there any other UDFAs you wanted to cover? We did.
No.
We did grab a center, a pure center, as an UDFA. UDFA undrafted free agent. We grabbed center. Where was it?
Sokol.
Yep,
Jeff
Josh Sokol
from,
out of Sacred Heart. Um, not a Big Ten
that
school.
That football powerhouse, Sacred Heart.
I don't even know if it's an Ivy League school.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think Sacred Heart and I think Holy Cross. Holy Cross was an Ivy League school, but I don't think Sacred Heart.
Sacred Heart is not. Sacred Heart's probably a Division III school or something.
So, we got the wide receiver out of Appalachian State, Thomas Henningsen.
Yep.
He's supposed to have some juice in him. We'll see how that goes. It makes our wide receiver room depth. I think what Kwesi's done assembling the whole 90-man roster, he's done well. And the fact that we've already released a guy, I put it out a couple days ago that we released a nose tackle that was the fifth nose tackle on the roster, so we could sign Brkic. So I expect more and more cycling of the bottom end of the roster.
There'll be some movement for sure.
Yeah. What we can look for, Naylor, yes. Which is a great name. It could be played on like Drew played on it there. Is another wide receiver. There's coming up this week in Egan, all the rookies report. So we will see them all for their rookie mini camp, which won't be much. I mean, they'll come and if they haven't already, they'll get sized up for their uniforms. Well, it'll be the first time we get to see them all of them in Vikings gear. I'm sure if you watch the Vikings.com website, there'll be pictures of all of them standing out this year.
They'll have a few 1 minute videos showing little montages of them doing whatever they're going to be doing on the field. Which won't tell us much, but it'll give them a chance to get acclimated, to get together as a group for the first time, and hopefully nobody tears an Achilles like how Jabo did when he was on his pro day, because we don't want any of that shit going on.
No. Hey, even though we got a new sports science guy, we don't want to overload him with work. Yep. Okay. That should be it. Have you got anything else you want to talk about today?
I do not, Dave. But just getting into the it's going to, we're going to have to be very creative here over the next couple of months because, the draft, free agency, that's all over. And that's been all the talk for the past few months,
right.
Along with the fact that we hired a new head coach and a new general manager. So now we're going to have to be creative in coming up with those Viking topics for this show so that people keep on watching and tuning in like they have. And we thank them for doing so. But there's always something with the Vikings.
And
hopefully
I anticipate this show, along with most of Climbing the Pocket's going to slow down a bit, go to once every 2 weeks or so. But I will let you know. You'll see it online. I will post. I do the Climbing the Pocket networks, social presence. I have one of the accesses to that. So a lot of this stuff you see is from me. You also see it from Matt Anderson, stuff like that. We will continue, and we'll let you know if there's a show, no show. But we're planning on shows right now. Like there'll be a show next week. And if everything goes right, I may even start today after this show to work on shortening that roll-in, so people don't go to sleep. Maybe find some new music. I would love to put some AC/DC on there. However, we do not have the copyright. I listen to AC/DC before the show to get us fired up. Little Black Eyed Peas too. Let's get this party started. But anyways,
whole lot of Rosie, Dave.
That's right.
Whole lot of Rosie. That'll get anybody fired up. If that doesn't get you fired up, nothing can.
So, hey, we want to thank everybody for watching us. And what do we say, Darren?
We say, Skol Vikings!
Skol Vikings! Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite aggregator. And a special shout out goes to our partners, the Daily Norseman, where the best Vikings content can be found, and to Lake Monster Brewing, home of the best beer in Minnesota. Skol, everybody.